Hello, good people of YouTube. Welcome to, I believe, is the 8th episode of Sunday Spotlight. With me, as always, founder of ComX, Sizzle.
Hello, everyone.
And special guest, Louie, Joyce. Give it up.
Hello.
How are you doing tonight, sir?
I'm doing very well. I think I just went for a swim in the ocean. It was lovely, and
Lovely.
yeah, Sunday evening. You know, it's a nice time.
Absolutely.
I'm doing well. How are you guys doing?
I'm solid, man. I'm good. This is a good way to cap off the week for me. Always look forward to it.
Yes.
Hello, all. So tell the good people, what do you do in comics? What's your bag?
So I'm an illustrator. So I'm a comic book artist and creator. I predominantly illustrate. I draw comics, but I do like zines and short comics and things where I am, coming up with a story and doing the whole thing, like printing and binding. And so I kind of will just say a comic book creator sometimes. Cool. Sometimes I collaborate, sometimes I do the whole thing myself. Most of my stuff that I write is usually shorter form, or but I'm working on a few bigger projects for a long extended time, but I got some stuff lined up. So yeah, mostly I draw, but I also do a little bit of writing.
That's cool, man. All right. How about we do some warm-up questions to get into it?
Yes. All right.
These are just quick. I've usually made them up on the spot.
Oh, no. Here we go. All right.
Okay. Which duck is best? Howard, Daffy, or Donald?
Howard.
Howard, good choice.
Yeah. I wanted to go Donald just because Huey, Dewey, and Louie, mad respect. Ooh. But I got to go Howard.
I'll go specific and say which Disney duck next time.
Yeah, right.
Would you rather go to the bottom of the ocean and be totally fine, or just out of Earth's atmosphere at the beginning of space?
Bottom of the ocean. Flashback to my Aquaman drawing episode.
Yeah. You can try one mythical/fictional piece of food from any story or movie. Which one would you pick?
I don't know. That's tricky.
Yeah.
Well, actually,
I'd go.
It's not even. You would go Butterbeer? Is that what you?
Oh yeah, and Butterbeer.
Oh yeah, Hogwarts. Yeah.
It's all good.
It's not even mythical, but I was just talking to my kids because they're watching Howl's Moving Castle at the moment.
Oh, good.
And
choice.
There's the bit where Hal is like frying the bacon and like frying the eggs. I was just talking about how hungry I get and how much I love any kind of food thing that Studio Ghibli does. So it would be one of their meals. Even if it's just like bacon and eggs, it would still be like the anime, the Studio Ghibli bacon and eggs. That would be it.
I'd be just like the parents from Spirited Away and turn into a pig because I would shout out.
Yeah, totally. That feast, like that thing. Yeah, I would go full pig for that.
It all looks amazing. Well, I can't read my writing. That's all right. Let's just dive into the interview. Let's get into the big questions.
All right.
Have you always been a creative guy?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess so. I've been drawing for as long as I can remember. I'm like creative when it comes to drawing, I guess, but like I'm not creative in every facet of my life. I can be pretty uncreative in certain areas. So, but yeah, like I've been drawing for as long as I can remember. It's always been, and I love the idea of telling stories and through the medium of comics, especially. So that's been something that I've been kind of obsessed with for as far back as I can recall. So yeah, I guess so.
Cool. So have you always been a reader of comics, and what kind did you sort of get into?
Yeah, I have. So my dad is a comic reader, collector, and so comics were around like as far back as I can recall. And he has a very eclectic kind of collection. Like he had a lot of like the Alan Moore stuff, a lot of like Mike Allred, a lot of Jamie, like the Hernandez brothers and Robert Crumb, and really all over the spectrum kind of collection, right? So I grew up with a lot of that stuff all around me, like and so yeah, it was something that I had discovered pretty early on, and certainly at a young age, I really glommed onto like superhero comics, like the X-Men, and it was the time of like the X-Men animated series and the arcade game and stuff. So that was like my real early comics obsession was the X-Men world and those characters. But I was also looking at like, you know, Madman comics and
awesome.
all kinds of stuff across the spectrum. So, but yeah, predominantly superhero comics for a really long time. And then as I got older, I discovered more slightly alternative stuff. And I remember like my dad, pardon me, he had 2 X-Men comics that I had to ask to look at, and it was like it was the 2 Barry Windsor Smith X-Men issues, Life Death, the 2 Storm focused issues. And so they took on this kind of mythical,
the forbidden fruit.
Yeah, you know, idea of what comics, and at the same time as I'm looking at that, I'm looking at like the 90s craziness, which is amazing as well in a lot of different ways. But so yeah, I have this kind of all over the place. You know, I remember being a kid and reading Promethea, like at a really early age, and not having a fucking clue what was happening in that comic, but just being absolutely amazed by the art and the storytelling and all of these things were happening. And that was like a lot of Alan Moore stuff that I like. Watchmen completely over my head so many times that I read it. And then like, but I knew there was something in there that I was just like, oh, this is amazing. Like something in here is just, I was connecting with. So yeah, I think I got off track a bit.
No, that was great. One of the first superhero comics I ever read in a similar vein was from my older cousins. I've only met them twice in my life, and I was quite young.
Yeah.
And they had a bunch. They didn't want anything to do with me, so they said, "Yeah, you go read them." And one of them was the death of Superman.
Yeah.
And just being utterly traumatized at the innocent age of 7, going, "Wait, they didn't actually," and they're going, "Oh yeah, he's dead, sucked in."
Yeah.
It took a long time to recover from that. I didn't realize they could go so dark.
Yeah. It's like, I feel
superheroes don't die, so.
Yeah, well, now you know. Yeah, it's cool. It's cool how intense that stuff is in your mind when you're a young reader. Like it really, really resonates so completely. And you kind of lose that a bit as you get older, but I find that my attention shifts to like focusing on like storytelling and like draw or artistic elements, and like so I still really love a lot of superhero comics. I still read some, and I love I can still find things to appreciate across the board. And so I read I read like heaps of manga, I read like heaps of alternative comics, I read heaps of zines, I read like everything I can get my hands on essentially, and I try to just absorb it as much of it as I can to kind of, because I still love the medium as a reader and as a creator, and I think the two things really inspire me to keep going.
Having a wide range is definitely helpful, I think.
Yeah.
Was there a particular project or even just a moment where you knew you wanted to pursue it more seriously than just a hobby?
Oh, I don't know. I remember like trying to do comics of my own as a young kid, and I would start lots of projects and never finish them. Like at some point I tried to adapt that Jet Li film Romeo Must Die into a
wow.
So somewhere, I mean, I don't know where, I can't find it, but somewhere there's like 10 pages of me trying to adapt that thing into comic format. But and when did that come out? I wouldn't have even been that young. But I think definitely going to a zine fair was really a significant moment for me, because it was I think early I was like, as a kid, I was like, oh, I'm going to make comics. But, you know, it would have just been a kid's proclamation of their dreams. You know, there was not much more to it than that. But going to a zine fair was really significant, because I met people who were actually in the same country, the same town, the same space as me, that were making like comics that were incredible. and selling them, and I got to meet them and talk to them. I remember meeting like Matty Hewen at a zine fair in Newcastle and just being absolutely amazed by his work. Like he's always been so good. And this is when he was going by Stickman, I think. So like way back. And, you know, Tim McEwen and a whole bunch of like cartoonists that were doing it. And that was really a moment where I was like, oh, it is possible to kind of have a proper crack at it from this area. But even then it was still just a hobby for a really long time. And I started doing zine fairs and making my own comics and selling them at zine fairs. But it wasn't until I was an adult, like in my 20s, that drawing was always a hobby, a thing that I did in my side, you know, in my spare time, and a passion. But working in graphic design and for years, and kind of, and then my wife's encouragement to actually study illustration kind of put me on the path of giving it a proper go as I got older. So yeah, I don't know that I can figure out it in an exact moment, but it was a whole bunch of little things that kind of guided me towards it.
That sounds great. You touched on graphic design. Do you have formal training in that? Is that your background?
Nah, I was mainly like self-taught. What did I do? Like we got a computer that had some graphics programs on there, like Photoshop and Illustrator. And I just started messing around in those programs and trying to create work. I think I was like I was on like internet forums at that time. So it would have been the early 2000s, and I was on like anime and comic forums and just making like silly little graphic banners to put in your signature, you know, underneath your post with like your favorite characters in them and shit. But through doing that, and I remember there were like battles where you would like battle someone. You would both have to make a graphic, and then people would vote on whose was better. And so through doing these things, I figured out how to use Photoshop and how to use Illustrator and how to compose images digitally. And you know, I would go out and take a lot of photos and then like collage them and create like crude vector, not even actual vector because I was doing it in a bitmap program, but like these kind of vector prints. And I was never really comfortable with color in traditional mediums. So working in a digital space really allowed me to explore that a lot more. And yeah, so I think I did that for years, and then I was self-taught mostly, and then I got a job at a screen printing company where I was mainly doing like color sets, but also graphic design stuff for the company. And so just kind of went from there.
Cool.
Yeah.
So if you had to put a label on it, what's the main requirement for a creative person, would you say? What's the most important feature?
It's a good question. It's a hard question. Like,
yes,
curiosity, I think, like, is a good one. Like, I think a lot of creativity comes from asking questions, and like maybe not knowing the answers, but like not being afraid of not knowing the answers, just like kind of searching for answers. You know. That's a very that's a very meta way to put it, but I think like it's like how can I draw this thing? How can I create this this page? How can I tell this story on a single page through this many panels on a thing? And what happens if I do this? And what happens if I do that? And how does changing this affect it? And a lot of that stuff is the stuff. It's all problem solving, essentially. You know, you're like trying to figure out the best way to transport something that's, in terms of drawing anyway, that's in here onto this page. And I guess that applies to other stuff, like talking about being very creative. Like, I'm not very creative when it comes to cooking. I just don't have the mind for it. But my wife is like super creative. She's like really, really good at cooking, and she's just able to kind of put together flavors and to have these elements which she can like problem solve into this amazing meal. And it reminds me sometimes of like, you know, where I'm like taking a script or taking an idea for a story and trying to transpose it onto this page through panels and drawings and words and all of these things. So yeah, I guess like curiosity is my answer.
No, that's a great one. We haven't had curiosity yet. That's good. So when you're just absent-mindedly doodling, like when you're on the phone or supposed to be paying attention to something, what's the one thing you find yourself drawing more than anything else?
Probably rollerblades. At the
Really?
moment.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Just like rollerblades. Yeah, I'll do a lot of zigzaggy patterns, just random patterns and stuff.
Yeah.
I'll draw rollerblades. I'll draw like just random characters. I draw Spider-Man a lot. He's always something that comes out when I'm just doodling, because most of the time when I'm just doodling, it's like with my kids at the moment. So we've got a piece of paper and it's like random colored pencils from pencil cases just been poured out everywhere. And my kids are usually like grabbing the pencil off me halfway through whatever I'm drawing, you know, so I got to grab something else and just, but it's actually a really fun way to draw, kind of, because it mixes up colors in interesting ways, and I'm usually pushing hard and like just going at it, and it's been a real creative kind of inspiration for my drawing, I think, doing that. I spend so much time digital drawing, like drawing digitally these days as well, so it's really nice to be on paper with a more tactile kind of medium.
We hear a lot of kids evolve style quite a bit with a lot of our guests, and always in a very positive way, which is nice to hear.
Yeah, definitely. I think I've noticed that. Like, I've got 3 kids, and it's a long time that I've been, and my eldest is 7, and so I've been, reading lots of kids' books, reading lots of comics that I might not have otherwise read, reading lots of, looking at a lot of illustration and art that I might not have gravitated towards, and it's definitely been like a major contributor. I would say, like, during the last 3 years, I've gone through like a big stylistic shift in my work and how I approach each drawing, and that's one of the, drawing in pencils with my kids is one of the catalysts for that kind of change. There's a few catalysts, but that's one of the ones I attribute to it.
That's cool. Speaking of your style, how do you describe that to people? Do you have a pitch or?
Nah, I always find this question really tricky. Kinetic, like move. I'm always trying to like make drawings that feel like they're moving, like they could be moving if you look away from them, like they're just in this moment in time captured. But yeah, it's like pretty cartoony. And as this stylistic shift that I've gone through, it's like it's quite stylized now. It's quite based on exaggeration and wacky proportions and things like that. But yeah, I guess
I have noticed this shift. It's very cool.
I guess
I've been digging it myself.
Sorry?
I've been digging it myself. I like what you've been doing.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's awesome. I'm gonna have to dig back further now to see these changes. I'll have to go back through your Instagram.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you can go through my Instagram is actually quite a good, because I've been just posting stuff up since 2011 or 12 or something. So it's it's an interesting time capsule, I think. But yeah, I do find that like I do like to change things up every now and again as well in how I'm working, just to keep it interesting and exciting.
Yeah, it feels good to challenge yourself too. Just shake things up for sure. Do you have any non-comic influences?
Oh yeah, like animation is a huge influence, but that's a lot of crossover with comics. But animation and film, like film, is really influential to my storytelling and my work. And what else? I don't know. I like just life, day-to-day life is very influencing now. Like the kids again, like just watching them emerge as people and how they interact with the world, and their perspective on things is a very enlightening and creatively inspiring thing, I think, for me.
Well, as Harvey Pekar said, ordinary life can be pretty complex stuff, and I think that's true.
yeah, totally. That's a good quote.
So when you're starting a new project, do you start with a script, or do you talk with the writer first for a while, or?
Yeah, it can change. It depends on the project, really. So, like in my collaborative works, it can be different. So sometimes a writer approaches me and they have a script already written, and they're like, "Hey, I've got this idea, and I think it'd be great to draw it." And they might just give me a brief outline of what it is, and it can go from just being a script page to me then taking that and starting to do my part of it. But sometimes also it can be like a writer telling me, "Oh, I've got this idea for this thing. I think it'd be cool. What do you reckon?" Like, I think A Fistful of Pain, which is my latest book that I've illustrated, or comic that I've illustrated with Ryan K. Lindsay, who's a Canberra-based writer. And so we kickstarted that last year, but we started talking about it back in probably 10 years ago. I don't know, like it was a while ago. Yeah. So I've got like rough sketches that I did back in the mid 2000s in relation to this book. And it's gone through all these kind of transformations over the years. And it's kind of gone from being at the forefront to being put on the back burner by both of us. And, and we finally gotten it done, but it was a very kind of organic way that it evolved. And a lot of the time it was like, he would do a script, he would have an idea, and I'd be like, "Oh yeah," I'd send through some sketches, and then he would do a script, and then I'd be like, "Oh, actually," and then like years have gone by and I'm like, "Oh, actually, now I think the characters should look like this," or I have this idea, and then I send that back to him, and then he changes the script, and then we're like, "Oh, actually, it's not going to be like this, it's going to be this," and so it kind of changes across its evolution. But yeah, in the case of like Hap Haven, which is a YA graphic novel that I illustrated it came out in 2019. But that was a case where the writer approached me, Norm Harper. He's a fantastic writer, and he approached me with the script and a basic idea, and he said, he's looking at a few artists, but he thinks I'd be a good fit. And so I sent through some sketches, and he picked me to be on the book. But he hadn't written the full kind of script for the entire graphic novel. So stuff that I'd done in my sketches had affected kind of how things played out, or certain things were where certain things were taken within the story. And also I was drawing and finishing pages while certain elements of the script were being finished on the latter end of the book. So
okay,
it can be, and then sometimes it's people who have like a finished script and they just want me to draw it, and I'm also happy to do that. So collaboration can be all over the place like that, and it's usually project dependent and artist dependent. With my own stuff, because it's normally shorter form, I usually just do like sketchy thumbnails and go from there, and then it kind of evolves from that. And sometimes I haven't figured out what the full story is until I'm doing those sketchy thumbnails, or until I'm even taking those sketchy thumbnails and kind of turning them into pages, Like I'll have story ideas and I'll do these sketchy thumbnails, but they're so sketchy that if I look back at them months later, I don't have a fucking clue what is going on, So I've got to kind of strike in the moment. Like I've done sketchy thumbnails for stories and not acted on it soon enough, where I'm like, nah, it's gone. No idea what was happening here. So it's project dependent. It changes all the time, and I think I like that. Like it depends on who I'm collaborating with, or what the aim of the project is, or where it's going to be and how it's going to play, and yada yada yada. That's
cool. So tell us about your workspace. Are we seeing it now? Is that your office, or?
Yeah. It's pretty messy at the moment, eh? Like I've got a big shelf of comics. I've got 3 kids, so it's a room that usually has a lot of shit just shoved in there to make the rest of the house seem cleaner. But yeah, it's just a table. Like I'll see if I can. So I work digitally, and I work predominantly on like an iPad these days with all my digital drawings. So I've got my iPad, and then I've got like a drawing table thing here. I got this X-Men manga that I got. So I do like my traditional stuff on there, and then I've just got my laptop. It's a bit cramped. I'm actually in the trying to kind of rejig my workspace a bit at the moment, so that I can get a little bit more desk space happening. But it gets the job done. I got lots of books there. We got lots of comics and books in the house, and yeah, it's not organized. Since we moved here, I used to have my comics organized, and like I don't know how it was organized, but it hasn't been organized for years now, which is kind of nice because you just go look at a shelf and there'll be like, like sex criminals next to X-Men Legacy, or Preacher next to 52, or whatever it is, like just random assortments.
Good lucky
comics. Yeah, and I like that.
So besides the iPad, you've got any sort of go-to tools you use every time, or?
So I draw on the iPad. I draw in Clip Studio Paint, which is what I used on the desktop. I used to have a Wacom, it's still back there, but I kind of shifted to the iPad when I needed to. I was going and working in libraries a whole bunch, so the iPad was portable. So I use Clip Studio Paint, which I find is like the best drawing app for me. It's really comics focused, and it's also got some really great animation tools. I've been using Procreate a lot recently as well, and running some workshops in Procreate, digital painting workshops and things like that. So those are the programs that I use on that. In terms of drawing traditionally, it's mostly like fine liners, and the Kuretake brush pens.
Ooh, very nice.
And Poscas when I can, and then just sometimes I use like some watercolory elements. But as I said, I'm not like fully confident in like just a travel painting thing.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm not really confident. I'm not super confident in like traditional medium colors. So most of my work tends to be colored and finished digitally. In my ideal world, I think I'd love to do all my line work traditionally and just have that nice time of drawing a pen and ink on paper, and then like finish scanning it all in. But in reality, it's usually you're just working digitally. It's so much faster. It's so much easier to edit. There's less cleanup time, all of that stuff. So yeah.
We touched on it before the show actually, but do you have a time or space where most of your ideas seem to come to you?
Well, yeah, as I was saying, last night, a bunch of ideas. So I got a big project coming up, which I can't talk so much about right now, but it's exciting, but also like super fucking intimidating. Like I'm pretty all over the place emotionally in how I feel about it. But for the most part, I'm really excited. But a bunch of ideas came to me last night between like stopping reading and going to sleep. Those like I was falling asleep reading, and I turned the light off and I'm gonna sleep, and then a bunch of ideas hit me, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is the stuff that I've been waiting to like, the ideas I've been waiting to have. And then should I get up and just do like work on this? And it's 11 o'clock. And they're like, nah, I'm not doing that. That's crazy. And so I went to sleep, and I've forgotten all the stuff that came to me. So that definitely happens a bunch. Late night inspiration. It's a treacherous thing, but it can be a really good time for ideas. Like in the shower is always good. I usually find that walking around is good. Sometimes I find I'll have to like, certainly for the early parts of creating something, right? So I really struggle with the early parts of a project, the conceptualizing, rough, not so much character designs, but like planning the story. Like character designs, sketching out pages. I do find that stuff like the most demanding creatively, and the rest, because it is where most of the hard work is done. You know, like you kind of figuring out the core storytelling or the core most important elements. And so, yeah, as I I've lost my train of thought. Where was I going? Yeah, walks are good. Yeah. Sometimes like procrastination. Sometimes I need to not do, or like I need to procrastinate for like a day or two, or like, and then I need to like butt my head against a wall for like 3 days to get to a breakthrough. I don't know if that makes sense, but like,
yeah, definitely.
Certainly in the past it's happened. Like I remember doing a short comic called Footsteps, and it was we only had one child, but my wife had gone away with the child, and I just had like 2 days of not what I had all this pressure on trying to be productive, 2 days of not meeting that pressure. And then like this moment, this like kind of turnover happened where I was able to like click through, and I just kind of, something happened and I just started churning it out. And it's the flow state. I was talking about this to someone earlier today. Like it's like in skating or, you know, he was talking about carving, but like this, you arrive at this flow state, which can be really, really hard to get into. But when you do find it, like things are flowing naturally and instinctually. And so that is often a time that I find most creatively fruitful for me, but achieving that can be really tricky, especially as I have more children and less time.
It's interesting how many people I talk to who say their ideas come to them when they have no access to a pen.
Yeah.
Like sleeping, shower, walking, you know, all that.
Some kind of sick joke.
It is. It must be. I like to think it's the mind's way of saying you needed a break for a bit. Okay, that's enough break.
Yeah. I mean, my mum's a writer, and I know that she's always had notebooks around, you know, and she's like gotten used to that, and has, you know, she'll get up and write stuff, and she'll try to kind of capitalize on those moments, which I guess is what a lot of people do, but I just don't have the energy for it if it's at 11 o'clock.
What kind of stuff does she write?
She writes a lot of prose. She's like a slashy. So she's been like doing a lot of different things for as long back as I can remember. She's a singer, a songwriter. She's written she wrote a movie. She's done stand-up comedy. She's written poetry. She's written books. She's done a whole bunch of stuff. She used to draw little cartoons that I remember from when I was a kid as well. So my dad is definitely like, as a comic, he's also a writer / theater director. So there's like a creative and a storytelling background in their parents, and yeah, so that's really nice. Like it's really nice to have them. They're both like really positive about what I do, and really helpful. And if I ever need like advice or any of that kind of stuff, they're kind of there for me, which is really nice.
Awesome.
Yeah. I think for a long time I was like, oh, I'm not going to do like write. I'm going to draw. I'm not going to be a writer like them. I'm going to draw instead. But then I realized it's all just kind of storytelling. I thought I was rebelling, but really I didn't. It's all just storytelling.
Like every kid.
Yeah.
Thought I was being a badass, wasn't.
No, not at all.
Do you have any little rituals or superstitions you like to do when about to start or during a drawing sesh? Some people need a specific drink or have a book nearby.
Nah, I like to have my coffee in the morning, but nah, I don't think I'm particularly superstitious or
what about music?
ritualistic.
Some people like to have a show.
Music. Oh yeah. Music is dependent on what stage that I'm like at in my creative process. So like that early conceptualization, writing, planning, thumbnailing, all that stuff, I can't listen to stuff with lyrics. Like I need to have, it's mostly like instrumental or soundtrack, like lyric-free bass stuff. Because I just find it distracting. But the rest of the process I can listen, I kind of go all over the place. Like sometimes I'll have shows playing. Usually it's shows that I've seen before so that I can I can split focus, you know. If I try to watch something I haven't seen before, I won't be able to do it, you know. It'll either be too distracting or I'll be annoyed that I'm missing out, whatever it is. So like I love X-Files. Like I will watch X-Files until the day that I die. Like that show is so fucking good. And it's really nice background. I know, like I've seen it so many times, so I know I don't have to even watch it. I can just visualize what's happening. But or often I listen to podcasts, roller skating podcasts or rollerblading podcasts. Mangasplaining is a great podcast I listen to heaps. X-Men podcast. Yeah, it's all over the joint, really.
Yeah.
So we're nearly at the end here. So last question. What is the best bit of criticism or encouragement you've ever gotten that's really stuck with you?
Oh, I don't know. Like I can't remember who said it, but I think like being told to like make sure that I work on things that I find inspiring.
Yeah, right.
Like that, or that I'm passionate about is a good thing. Like it's drawing for me was, for all those early years, was just like a passion thing, you know. So very easy to lose that when you move into, especially as a freelance artist. Like I don't just work in comics; I can work in a lot of different fields, like publishing and storyboarding and advertising and all kinds of places that can suck that right out of you. And so making time to like do stuff that is like similar to what I did when I would just love drawing, so that I can maintain that thing. But yeah, I can't recall who exactly said it to me.
Makes a lot of sense.
I might have heard it in like a podcast or something, but a critique, like I can't think of a critique. Sorry.
That's right. It's blended into the subconscious somewhere.
Yeah.
That's all right. We like to end on a plug here. I mean, on a quote. Sorry.
Yes.
I was going to say.
Sorry, Shane. I threw him there.
Cool. I'll put it up.
I may not be smart enough to do everything, but I am dumb enough to try anything, by Jeff Johns. I've been reading a lot of him this week because I scored a couple of omnibuses from a secondhand store.
Nice.
Sweet.
And is there anything you'd like to plug?
Yeah. What am I going to plug? You can find me at louiejoyce.com or at louiejoyce on most Instagram, Twitter, Tumblr. Yeah, most platforms. I'm at Louie Joyce. Plugging things. I'm going to be at Goulburn Comic Con on the 18th of March. So Goulburn does a really great comic convention show with like heaps of, you know, local artists and interstate artists and workshops and
wow,
you know, games and all kinds of stuff. Like it's like a Comic Con. It's great cosplay stuff. So if you're in that area, definitely worth going to. A Fistful of Pain, my most recent book that I did with Ryan K. Lindsay, is that we kickstarted last year, and that smashed all our expectations, and is published by ComX Tribe, and was their biggest Kickstarter that they've done. So we've managed to produce this incredible hardcover with like gold foil and die cut eyes, and the story is about two sisters essentially fighting over the family dragon in like a big kind of grindhouse epic kung fu showdown. It's kind of like a love letter
cool.
to the
That
kung
sounds
fu
great.
films. And yeah, so that should be like that. It's printed now and it's in transit. So I should have that with me at future shows. And yeah, definitely keep your eyes peeled for that.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm not sure what else I would plug at the moment. I think that's it.
Awesome. How about you, Stiz?
I'll just do the usual. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel.
And
So-
Citrus Perceptions, we're funding that at the moment. Yours
Yes,
truly
yes.
has pages
I
debuting
haven't
that.
got any things to put up. Let's see. I didn't come prepared. There we go.
There you go. Click on that.
Citrus.comx.studio. That's a bit of a pre-order campaign. It's not really a Kickstarter or anything like a crowdfunding. So that will be happening no matter what. It's just a pre-order campaign. So yeah, get in there, buy a Citrus comic.
Awesome stuff. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. See you again next week. Leave your comments if you got any, and I'll read them out next week. Thanks again, Louie, for being on. It's been great.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely.
Awesome, man. All right. Thanks, everyone. See you next time.
See you all. Thanks.
This show is sponsored by the ComX Shop.